Hello, hello. Music finished quick, didn't it? It's a West Ham fans live chat show. Usually do it Thursdays, but I thought Monday be a good day. There's not too many other shows around, and Frankie didn't get a chance to speak about the game on Saturday. And we got one or two other things to talk about that came out of that match, and as usual, one or two other stories flying around. So let's wait for the chat to build up. But Frankie, let's start off with the West Ham weight event on Saturday, which started at 11 in the morning, mate. Colour Factory, Hackney Wick, 10 minutes from the stadium. I was there with my son, and we met Ian Bishop and Martin Allen. Hosted a really interesting show on Ian Bishop's life and career at West Ham, mate. And for you, it was one of the first times you were arranging that kind of thing with kind of X and Dave Walker, mate. So for me, I obviously love West Ham history. I know Ian Bishop really, really well. He was there when I first started watching West Ham, and it was really, really interesting. You always get some stories that they can't say on TV channels or books. It's exclusive, you see. So you do get some naughty stories about things. That's really interesting for me. But another thing that was a highlight for me, mate, pint of, was it Amstel? £5, I think.
Yeah.
Wow. That is really, really good. So, like you said, we parked over the Westfield, came over, and I will try the food next time. But yeah, got this sign from Ian Bishop. So, got one or two of those. I'm going to frame that. The frame's coming a couple of days. But what was it like for you, mate? I know it was, a lot of pressure, a lot of running around, and perhaps, like you said, you're not going to enjoy it as much as me because you've got to make sure everyone else is happy, isn't it, mate? But just to let you know, we were happy, mate. So I hope you get good feedback, going forward. But yeah, what was it like for you, mate?
Yeah, it was good. Obviously you've got a lot to organise and a lot to arrange, and obviously it's making sure the most important thing is that everybody's happy. So it was good considering the travel issues. I think it was busy. I think we got a good crowd in, all things considered. It felt busy. It felt like there was enough people in the venue. But it wasn't over full, which was good because it was our first, obviously, that type of event there. So, like anything, mate, there are some changes that we want to make for next time and some improvements that we want to make. And to be honest, that will be like that all the time because we want it to keep getting better. We want to improve things more and more. And you know what I'm like, mate? I'm someone who actually cares and wants to put on good value and put on a good show for everyone and make sure that they're having the best time possible. So, yeah, we've got a bit of debriefing to do. We're going to send out some sort of anonymous feedback forms and get input from everyone. And hopefully just continue to improve it. I think, the sound system was great. I think the production, having the screen above was really good. We're trying to do things properly, mate, which is important. And, once pretty much the stage show had all finished and we started to put the music on, that created a little bit of atmosphere, mate. And, I'm hoping next time people will stay behind a little bit more. I'm not sure people realised that even though the event was finished, the venue stayed open right until kickoff time. So it's a great place to sort of have space, have drinks, easy to get to bar. There's no queuing. You haven't got to hang around to get drinks and stuff. So much more pleasurable drinking experience as well, mate. So, all in all, really enjoyed it. Great day. And looking forward to the next one this Sunday, which John Moncur will be the guest, which is definitely more my era and fond memories of him growing up as a kid and coming on the pitch and getting a yellow card within a couple of minutes and things like that. He was a real proper West Ham man. So I'm looking forward to his stories. I know you've seen him before. I actually haven't. I've never actually even met him before, even at the other things that have gone on. I've never met him. So I'm looking forward to, I've been told he's a bit of a character and he's quite funny. So I'm looking forward to that, mate.
Yeah, he's got a lot of stories. He's not as mad as he was, and I'm hoping he'll keep his clothes on because he's famous for not having any on. That's the stories you guys will get. But I'll probably go to the one after John Moncur, and I'll probably go VIP. So there is a VIP ticket you can get, which, a lot of drinks are free and that kind of thing. Separate room upstairs, so I'll test that out as well. So, really, really good, and I encourage everyone who watches the channel to give it a go, really. Watch your heroes. And at worst, if you're just looking for a nice, not so busy place to get drinks, so that's even worth going in for that if you want,
Yeah, that's how I see it, mate. I've got to be honest.
Makes sense.
I know we've done the King's Head out in Old Stratford at times. I've pretty much done every pub in and around West Ham, and there isn't anything that I really enjoy going to anymore, to be honest, mate. And you'd pay more than £5 a pint in the King's Head now. So, the fact we managed to agree that cheaper drinks price is obviously is good for everyone. And like you say, you can get to the bar. It's not chock-a-block. It's not overly hot in there. It's not uncomfortable. We've made sure we keep it, to a really nice sort of comfortable number of people that can get in. It is a massive venue anyway, so it would be quite difficult to fill it up on a standard match day, but it made for a really pleasurable experience, and the fact that everyone could sort of get a seat and sit down if they wanted to was ideal. I think all round, mate, I think we've got some good things going on there, and everyone should, at least with the ticket price at, well, you can get it for £10 if you're a West Ham Way Patreon member or Supporters Club member, £15 for everybody else. I think it's real good value, mate, to be honest.
Good. Rob, you're in, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, I ended up having to use my mobile. I was trying to use my tablet and it wasn't having it, so I'm here anyway. But I've only got 18% battery, so I might have to run to a charging point at some point.
No point. Yeah, I know. When some people use different platforms, it doesn't quite agree with whatever web browser you're using. It is a bit funny, but really good to see you. It's been a while. This show is nice and relaxed. We just talk about a couple of things that gone on the previous week, like the match, and a couple of points that are coming from it. But you what we were talking about is, as Frankie is kind of arranging like the West Ham Way event. What was it, the weekend before the game on Saturday in the morning? And so I got to see sort of Ian Bishop and got that signed, and a few stories about him, really. So it's a good place to meet up. Hackney Wick Colour Factory, 10 minutes from the ground. I
would have liked to. I picked up a leaflet on the night of the European game, and I wanted to go, but I was really stretched for time before the Sheffield game. So it sounds like it was a good night, good afternoon, I should say.
It was. All the timing worked, and Martin Allen was the host. All good and fun, and with him as well, mate. But well worth it, mate. John Moncur's next week, so I'm not going to that one because I've seen him already. But he's next week. But before we get into it, Rob's obviously author of a couple of books. Rational Hatred of Luton Town, who actually, they're in the same league as us, Rob, after a while, isn't it, mate?
It was actually, it's the first time we played them in a competitive game since I wrote the book, and that was 30 years ago. So,
I mean, Luton, I mean, I totally understand the name of the book, mate. Luton are one of those, they always beat us, and you probably know better than me, mate. When we won the old Division 2 or whatever it was back then, 81, Luton were like, we couldn't win them under David Pleat, whatever.
Did the double over us, didn't they?
Yeah, extraordinary. And what Rob is also kind of doing, he's got his own YouTube channel. So if you follow that link, I was going to ask you about this, mate, because I'm hoping the missus is still speaking to you, because I can imagine the amount of work that's gone into that, Rob. That is amazing, mate. Seriously.
Keeps me very quiet, it's true to say.
But everyone, search for West Ham History or Robert Banks on YouTube, and he's done a fabulous series that goes into many, many episodes and parts, focuses on the John Lyall era all the way from 74, 75 to 1989. So great journey from John Lyall, lots of stories, lots of players, largely ups, few downs, but definitely not boring. So, but quickly before you go into it, Rob, what was your experience doing such a mammoth? You took on such a mammoth task, mate. Hats off to you, mate.
Well, it's a strange thing, because I started it. I don't know when it was, about March of last year, and just enjoyed it so much that it didn't feel like it was a mammoth task. It was just, it was just enjoyable. And every time you bring the videos and the music and the stories together, and an episode comes together, it's a really satisfying thing. And also all largely positive comments come back every week after I've published, and that keeps you going as well. I'm going to have to plug in because
go. Take your time. Take your time. Don't worry.
Yeah. I wasn't
We're gonna
expecting. I have to use my phone, and it's completely knackered. Hold on a sec.
Don't worry. We'll get
still
you
see
back
me?
on.
No, there we go. I'm not going to be.
Yeah, we can see
go.
you. Yeah, we can see you, mate. No problem with that. I was going to say, I love the choice of music as well that you've done. I love the opening theme of it. It's really catchy. It's kind of good. So, yeah, it brings back all the memories of the old songs and things as well, doesn't it? Going back to all those periods.
Yeah, I mean, I think music is one of those things that's so evocative and brings back so many memories for people. It's not, for me, football does that as well. So I can remember where I was.
Yeah.
I'm really struggling with it. I can remember where I was. Can you still see? Am I going dark, or can you still see me? Because the screen keeps going dark on me.
I can see you. You're moving. The screen's moving a lot.
I know, it's because I'm holding my phone in my hand.
Obviously, Rob's over the nightmare.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Take your time anyway. If you want to put it on something permanent. Yeah. Don't worry.
No. So. Oh, now what have I done? Oh.
Don't worry. Don't worry. It's one of those things, technology. But anyway, yeah. So basically, Frankie, the game we beat Sheffield United 2-0, mate, and it's probably one of the average, poorest teams I've seen come to the London Stadium. And for once in a while, mate, very, very comfortable. 2-0 up at half time. No squeaky bum time, mate. I'll go into a bit more what I thought. But yeah, how did you think the whole game went and how did you feel after, mate?
Yeah, I mean, it was, like you say, mate, probably one of the easiest Premier League matches I've ever seen us have, to be perfectly honest. I don't think at any point it was ever in doubt. They didn't really have much threat. They were really disappointing, to be honest with you, mate. And don't get me wrong, we done the job that we needed to do, which was great. And I'd like to have seen a little bit more of like when we scored the goal. The second we turned the pace up a little bit and done some one-touch passing, we opened them up so easily, and it was a great move. And Bowen got the goal, and that was pretty much game over from there as soon as we'd scored, to be honest with you, mate. So, yeah, it was a very comfortable day for us. I've seen a few people moan that maybe we should have scored some more and stuff like that. I wasn't too much about the score line. I would have liked to have seen us try and get good habits and try and play that type of football throughout the whole game. But, mate, at the end of the day, it was always comfortable. We didn't have to get out of second gear, and that was it. Job done, mate. I think we're going to find out a lot more about us. I think a lot of people were just happy to get a win after 2 losses, got back to winning ways, which was obviously the most important thing. I do feel like if you're going to want to become a team that has a certain type of pattern of play or play a certain way of football, it needs to become habit. And I would have liked to have seen us do a bit more of those faster passing, do a little bit more of that and show that bit more intent, because that then becomes the normal thing for you. So when you play a more difficult team next, whether it be Newcastle or wherever, you're getting used to that's what you always do. You always keep that same pace, that same intensity. You keep that whatever. There was a moment, though, where the ball went out wide on the right and it was a lost cause, really. And Bowen went chasing for it and stretching for it. And I almost sort of cringed. And I was like, it's not necessary. Just don't injure yourself. Don't get an unnecessary knock. Don't get an unnecessary strain. Just let the ball bloody go. So I can understand why we might not have been chasing down every single ball and stuff like that. But at least keep the pace of your passing and the moving and keep that up, because I do feel like that needs to become, something that you just get used to doing naturally. So, I didn't want us to overdo it and pick up unnecessary injuries or knocks or whatever, because the game was never in doubt. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from West Ham maybe. But we're going to find out a lot more in the next coming games, mate. I think we've got a tricky old game on Thursday night. I don't think that's going to be as easy as everyone thinks. And then Newcastle's going to be a proper test. So looking forward to seeing where we are at the end of those, mate. Yeah,
I mean, obviously, as the comments are flying in and the little sort of thing I did yesterday, mate, for me, the most interesting thing for me will be how Kudus fits into West Ham United in the next couple of weeks, months, games, mate. And what did you think of when Antonio went off and then Kudus came on? Did you know what formation that was? Like, was there anyone up front?
It's a really good point, mate, because I actually think for the following 15 minutes after our substitutions, we were all over the place. I felt like that if we had played any team with anything about them, they would have got back in the game. They would at least have scored one, because even Sheffield started to threaten and look like they was, going to actually have a bit more chance of scoring. I don't know what Moyes was up to. Kudas come on, played on the right-hand side of the midfield, what it looked like. Then all of a sudden he was shoved up top on the sort of left-hand side. But they had to change it, because whatever they did originally, which I could not for the life of me work out what they'd set up there when they made those substitutions, it was so unbalanced, and it was really causing us problems, which is why I think they had another quick reshuffle, mate. It just says to me again that we've got this problem where we still only have one idea of how we want to play. All right, it's great when you're getting away with it against teams like Sheffield, who can't really offer nothing. But it still concerns me that if we ever need to, we're just making substitutions, we haven't got a clue. So, yeah, Kudas still, for me, we don't have a clue what his best position is yet, or still how to use him, mate.
Yeah, that'll be interesting for me, mate. And yeah, it just looked like 4-2-4-0 up front, or didn't quite know what was going on. And to be fair, you picked up on it before me. You know me, when we sign someone, I get really excited. You know me, that's what I live for. But you said, hang in there, wait. There's a couple of things I want to check out. And I'm kind of thinking you were right. I mean, when we signed these players, no doubt they got form, they're decent, they're known, they carry that kind of value. But listen, we've seen Alvarez and Ward-Prowse, which are more kind of Moyesy players, fit in nicely into those slots because they're playing in the same positions they did for the club they came from. With Kudus, it's largely 4-3-3 in the middle, or up front in the middle, one of three very close to him. Very similar to when we signed Haller. He came from a 4-3-3. If you remember, Haller was up front with two holding his hands very closely. So that's kind of, it is concerning, very, very early yet. But I thought it would have been a nice game to give him a bit more minutes, or maybe even start with him. I don't think I've seen him with Antonio together on the pitch. I might be wrong. That's what I'm waiting to see, how them two will kind of play well together. I was losing interest, Frankie. I left after 85 minutes, mate. I didn't think anything was going to happen. There was nothing exciting anymore. And I thought we more or less have kind of got the 3 points in the bag, really. So it's that kind of thing. Steve, I did speak to Dave about you, mate, and I will take you to obviously I'm not going to the John Moore Kerr event, but we'll definitely take you to the next one, mate. Definitely. Lots of hellos going in there. Patrick, how you doing, mate? It's all about Kudas. There's such interest in the man. Oh, mate. I know you guys, what you're thinking, mate. So, yeah, I mean, Kudas is obviously talking point. He's our record signing. Again, a very difficult question, Frankie. Do you think he's a David Moyes signing, or is he probably the one technical director got in through the... Yeah.
He's a Steiden transfer. I think that's quite obvious, and it shows, because when they're Moyes players, they seem to go straight into the starting lineup, and when they're not, they seem to be isolated. And there's this root story that comes out that they need time to adjust and this and that. Look, I think Moyes is struggling. I'd said to you a couple of weeks ago, I don't think Moyes knows what to do with him. I hope he stumbles across how he can use him and get the best out of him. We've got a problem at the moment, mate, because we're in this situation where, we've got... But it's hard, isn't it? Because Soucek, nobody expected him to be doing as well as he is this year so far. And whether you like him and whether you think he's limited or not, the fact is he scored a goal to get us through in the cup the other night. We then roll on against Sheffield. He gets the second goal and puts the game to bed, really. It was sort of like, that's it, game's won. So he's doing his job. So it's hard to drop Soucek, and Moyes will never drop Soucek. You can't really drop Alvarez, because Alvarez is making us tick from defence and getting the ball moving and plays it around really nicely.
Yeah.
You know, and then you've got Paqueta in there, who you're not going to drop Paqueta because he's another one who makes it. And then you've got Ward-Prowse. So it is very difficult to work out where Kudus fits in all of that, because there's 4 players in there who are just not going to be dropped out of that starting lineup. Will the balance of the team be great with those 4? I don't know. I'm yet to see against the better teams whether or not we can make that tick perfectly, because I still think Paqueta does get a little bit wasted on that left-hand side. For me, the big problem we've still got, mate, is Antonio up front. He was wasteful against Liverpool. He didn't look like he was going to do much against Sheffield. You know, can Kudus play as a false 9 and play up there a little bit deeper and allow Bowen to sort of drift in from out wide and be an attacking player? I don't know. Again, it's not for me to decide, but I think the only way that this is all going to work out for the good is if Moyes stumbles across something by accident like he does and find a way to fit them all in that gels. Other than that, I think we might have another situation where we've got a really expensive player on our hands who gradually gets more and more isolated, gets more and more frustrated, and then ends up wanting to leave for a fraction of what we signed him for, which would be an absolute disaster. There's no question, mate. He's got bags of ability. He looks great on the ball. I'd love to see him find his place in this team. And I know we've kind of got a lot of games that are going to come thick and fast. Hopefully we have good cup runs in domestic cups, and then we've also got the Europa League. But the question is that enough to keep Kudus happy? Some players, it is enough, because a manager will put his arm around them and tell them what their plan is for them. Problem is with David Moyes, he don't seem to communicate well enough in those situations. And if he is going to play Kudus and it's not in Antonio's position, then he's either got to drop Soucek, Ward-Prowse, Paqueta or Alvarez. And mate, don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with sometimes against a game like Sheffield United, putting your arm round Alvarez and saying, I'm going to start Kudus today. I want us to be on the front foot. I'm going to attack more. Next week, I plan to bring you back in. You're not dropped because I'm not happy with what you've done or your performances, but I just feel this player's better for this game. There's nothing wrong with that. And when your player believes in the manager and the manager is positive about it and says it's for the right reasons, you hope that player backs the manager in those scenarios. With Moyes, you've just got to have that first 11 that just works. And that's it. If he has to manage a squad, it seems to be a little bit of a problem, mate.
I think you're bang on. I don't think he's a striker, certainly not one like Antonio to play by himself. I think he's got a lot more to offer in terms of setting things up and creating. I wouldn't want him up front where he's just waiting for someone to deliver the ball to him, when I think it's kind of vice versa, really. So for me, I wanted a striker to compete with Antonio and freshen up one of the fullback positions with the money, really. But it's just slightly concerning where, 38 million, and I know the season's not that old, but he's not getting a sniff at the moment. And if we look at other clubs and perhaps their major signings, I mean, having said that, listen, we've got Alvarez and Ward-Prowse doing really, really well, so we're not completely wasting all our signings. Whoeveropoulos, we've got to obviously bed him in slowly as well.
That was an interesting one, because everyone called for Mavro to start, but I personally, mate, I gave Aguerd my man of the match. I thought to bounce back the way he did, it actually felt like he had a bit of a point to prove. This is the interesting one. Aguerd can have these games where he does look like a Rolls-Royce player and he don't put a foot wrong. He looks great. He looks like top level. They always seem to be the games where we're on the front foot. Aguerd seems to struggle when we're under the cosh. That's when he seems, and we're on the back foot. That's when he struggles. So, I don't know whether Aguerd looked good because it was only Sheffield or whether we'll see him improve. But, it's nice to have this dilemma, I suppose, that we've got players who are really good players battling for positions. But again, that when you've got that, you need the manager to be keeping everyone happy and still keeping it harmonious. And I think we've seen, look, I'm not sitting here criticising Moyes. I'm not sitting here digging him out. I'm just saying, whenever we've had players who feel like they're good enough to be in the starting lineup, we end up with a situation where he upsets people. And I just hope that he can keep everybody happy.
Yeah, I did see at the beginning of the match that Zuma had a really strong word with Agard, gave him an extra big hug, patted him on the back because he knew that he's losing confidence and he needs a good game. And yeah, he wasn't really tested, but to be fair, I think I saw 2-3 situations where he put really good blocks in. He got his body on the line. He took one on the face, if you remember, Frankie, as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was all right. So we'll monitor him and see what happens with that. Bill, how you doing, mate? Should be more ruthless, build momentum and confidence going forward. It's very easy to compare the Newcastle result, which I think I was doing in my mind, mate. They put 8 and I wanted something like at least 4. That was in my mind. But football's never that simple. And listen, you look at our history, we could have come unstuck. So yeah, we won, got a clean sheet 2-0. We're hanging in there. We've got a couple of teams breathing down our necks. So it's going to be... Yeah, it's going to be hard to... Well, our target's got to be to qualify in the European positions, top 7. Whether we... I think looking at the way the table's shaping up, there is some weird things going on with Chelsea, Man United and other stuff. At the same time, I think Brighton, yeah, they got good tonking. Tottenham, Liverpool, will come to that later on because VAR is worth talking about briefly later on. But yeah, like you said, Frankie, it's early in the season. We're kind of just behind the leading pack, nicely set in there like a horse race. And in Europe, in the Carabao Cup, mate, got Arsenal coming up. Don't forget that. I mean, that's going to be one of those, hopefully, sparkling evenings with good atmosphere. And I saw the prices go up. I think it's about £10 to £15 a ticket. Not bad. So that kind of gives you a chance to bring your children in and that kind of thing. So lots to look forward to, mate. And kudos, yeah, we'll see how that happens. Happy Hammerette, hope you're doing good, hope you're doing well. Again, Happy Hammerette, obviously we met at the West Ham Sports Bar many years ago, didn't we, which is no longer a venue. So again, give West Ham Way event a chance, and there's good people, different age people there, full of sort of knowledge and things. So yeah, it's like you said, there's not many places that easily we can meet and things like that. But yeah, certainly the West Ham Way event, when it'll be on, is certainly a good place. It's complicated, Happy Hamret, with David Moyes in charge. I mean, when we played the top 4, top 6, we got it in our back of our minds how David sets up. It's an issue with a lot of fans. They feel we should go for it a bit more. So it's a fine line between really going for it and getting unstuck. Then when we do go in the lead against these top 4, we don't push on. We sit back, and then we've seen what happens with that. Signings, yeah, 1 or 2 attacking signings. The record's not quite there. Antonio, yeah, mate. Liverpool, Soucek set him up, didn't he? Put it on a plate against Liverpool. Absolutely made a hash of it. And what I was telling people, Frankie, like when you go more often than me, you see the whole game, and you see what he's up to. How often the ball doesn't stick to him, he loses it. He makes a couple of really bad mistakes in terms of shots, but then the record books will say he got an assist, so it covers up sometimes the true what's really going on in the football pitch. That's why you can't quite beat being there, really, because the TV cameras don't follow every player. Rob Singleton, hope you're doing well, mate. Yeah, it's true, Snazzy Yazzy. We're not that bad, are we? Are we mellowing like wine? Yeah, we have our days, mate. We have our days. And I think the Arsenal game is when my adrenaline will be really, really up for it, mate. London derbies and that, mate. I'll tell you what, Cornet, I've completely forgotten about him. I've completely forgotten about Cornet, and I was like banging on about him, but I don't know what's going on. But what I do know is, Frankie, that in that League Cup, he didn't do nothing, mate. He didn't tear up anything like he perhaps should have if he was knocking on the door. It could be another case of managers just not motivating, mate. It's just not happening for him. And he came to us again on the back of a really good season for Burnley, even though I think they went down. He was still all right, but that one was probably going out the window in January, mate. Cornet, I mean, we can't say anything. We don't hardly see him, do we, mate?
No. It's, I don't know. We seem to always make a hash of those sort of things, don't we? We never quite get it right.
I mean, Steve, whether Mavropoulos is a Moyes player or not, I'm not sure, because, I don't know, he's a defender, he's a big lump. I mean, Ward-Prowse was picking him out from corner. It's another thing, isn't it, Frankie? I mean, Ward-Prowse puts it on a plate for us 2-3 times a game, And not quite.
But there was
getting
something
in
what's
there.
happening at the moment that it happened again this weekend.
Yeah.
He keeps picking out Bowen. Bowen keeps messing up the header. I don't know whether it's because we've got the big men at the back post and they're picking up the big guys and they're sort of leaving Bowen free in the middle, and that's part of a plan, or whether or not we need Ward-Prowse to start getting a bit more whip on it and sending it to the back post, because he does put it on a plate every time. But unfortunately, the last couple of times it's fallen to Bowen, and Bowen's just headed it straight into the into the goalkeeper's hands. Although there was one in the second half where he did get it to Aguerd right at the back post, and Aguerd managed to mess up the header and unfortunately didn't get it on target. But it is a really nice feeling, mate, that every time we get a set play now, you feel like something can happen. It is good.
It's good. Happy Hamret, Kudos up or swap. See, what I'm thinking is Kudos cannot play up front in a 4-2-3-1. He will not play that role. It will not happen, right? We know the players that can play that role. I think that Sevilla guy, El Nesri, Broja at Chelsea, whenever he gets fit, those kind of players can, because they're younger, good stamina, physical, they're strong. Harry Kane, they can do it. He can't. He can only do it in a 4-3-3 with the two next to him, whether that's Antonio or Bowen. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think we bought him for that. I mean, it's crazy me thinking that. Sometimes I think with these strikers, like you said, Moyes, and I know the way he is, he's quite bitter. If that wasn't his player, he's going to make a point to the board. He's going to take the mick with him and say, look, sometimes I'm thinking, are you doing that deliberately? Like, you're not going to get the best out of him. It's all kinds of things, mate.
We have got some problems at the moment, mate. There's no question. We just ended up signing players, like first team players. We've got too many similar players. Like, we're crying out for someone on the left. Like, we're crying out for an alternative striker. There's some positions that we really needed and we ignored them. And then we ended up with two similar type players or players that don't really fit in the system that we play. So I guess that's why Moyes moans and says he wants what he wants, because at the end of the day, he is so stubborn. You could give him the best number 10 in the world and Moyes ain't going to play with a number 10. He just ain't going to do it. So at the end of the day, you have to sign players that fit into the manager's system and how he wants to play, or otherwise he's just going to isolate them, mate. So
he just loves Mickey. But a good point you made last year was that when we do buy a striker who's going to compete with Antonio, he throws his dummy out, doesn't he? Antonio gets in the mood, and all that thing we've heard, that when we do get someone and he gets dropped and things like that. So that's kind of another interesting personality point from him. It's one or two things to think about what to do with him. Paqueta came from a 4-3-3 system as well, Paul, at Lyon. He used to play in, the three behind. Paqueta drifts all over the pitch, Frankie, anyway, doesn't he? He doesn't stay in one position. He's just all over.
He does. When he first came to us, when you read the sort of scouting reports on him, there's websites where you can read sort of scouting reports and stuff. They said that his best attribute to the side was getting the ball from deep and finding the winger on the left-hand side. He's very good at getting the ball, moving it out to the left. And so he has played on that left side of a 4-3-3 before. That's probably why he's there now. The problem is we haven't got a good enough left winger to link up with him. That's the problem. If we had a proper left winger to the level of Bowen or something like that, we might all be sitting here right now saying that's a perfect place for him to play. Because he's linking up with Emerson quite well. It's just who's then in front of them that I think is the bit that's kind of missing at the moment. So I think sometimes it isn't always about a player isn't looking right in a certain position. Sometimes it's the other players around them that are limiting, that are limited. So yeah, I think that left-hand side does seem a little bit of a problem for us. I mean, I've heard Kudas suggested that he could play down that side. And when he was signing, I think a lot of people thought he might be able to be used over that way. But we've got that issue where right-sided or right-footed players can't play on the right side no more, and left-footed players don't play on the left side. They always want them to be cutting in. So It's I don't know, modern day football, mate, isn't it, I suppose?
Like I was mentioning, if a lot of our players like Bowen and Paqueta like to cut in, then we sometimes lack that width from the fullbacks, don't we, sometimes, to compensate for that. That kind of happens. Trini, hope you're doing well, mate. Mate, if we sign Kudos to be a sub for Bowen, that is worrying. I don't think we've got that much money we can afford to do that. But for me, it's very odd that when Kudos comes on, Antonio goes off. And in the Europa games, Frankie, what a waste playing Danny Ings up front by himself. And then, I mean, Kudos ain't going to get nothing out of that, mate.
I'll tell you what, you won't get away with playing Danny Ings up front on his own against Freiburg, mate, because they ain't a bad team. I think if you're going to rely on that on Thursday night, then we've got a problem, which is why I'm so interested to see what we do against Freiburg on Thursday and then Newcastle at the weekend, mate, because I don't think we've played this same starting lineup for the last 3 games now. I actually don't think it's going to work for the next 2. So, you know, Moyes has got to show us he's got a bit of something about him in these next couple of games, because Newcastle's going to be tough, even though they're going to be missing a few players, I've heard. And Freiburg ain't going to be no pushover. It's a big, big week for us, mate. I tell you, it's a big, big week for West Ham, this one. This is going to be a real test.
It is. That's why you want every single player utilised in the best way. And Danny Ings up front by himself is a complete shit show. You know, is anyone going to watch those kind of games live in the ground? They're not going to get anything from him. He's not going to make the runs for Kudos. He's not going to hold it up for anyone. If you and me, amateurs, can see that, I mean, he could be another one. I heard Everton were quite interested in him in the last window. Obviously, ex-manager, isn't it? Danny Ings is at Burnley. I don't know if he's going to last in the job anyway, but that's a different thing. But talking about, I don't know how I just thought of it, but if he was ever fit and didn't have these issues, I had a lot of time for Calvin Lewin, mate, at Everton up front. He does a lone striker, doesn't he? Got in the England squad, but mate, he's all over the place at the moment with what his body's doing to him at the moment. He's just full of injuries, really.
Yeah. Another one, a typical West Ham signing would be Tony on the cheap, mate. If he, you know, with the issues he's had, and if we can get him for a little bit of a bargain, I think that's the sort of thing West Ham would jump at. But while he's a good player, and he actually probably is a sort of player that would work in Moyes' system, I'm concerned that you don't need the issues that come with him. I know some people who work at England and are involved in the England setup, and some of the stories I've heard from his hotel rooms and stuff like that when he's been on England duty is pretty terrible. And we don't need a bad egg in that dressing room, mate, because one thing I do feel like we've got is a little bit of a stable squad at the moment. It seems like a relatively happy camp, and that's kind of, we need to keep that. You know, putting a player in there that's just going to be a nightmare and cause trouble is not what we need.
Yeah, Moyes is quite careful about what type of characters he brings into the dressing room, and yeah, there is a shady side to him there. Arsenal, Spurs, Arsenal and Chelsea are linked with him. I think Arsenal are going to be linked with every player. I don't know where they're going to get the money from, but that's another story. Steve, you're right. Antonio, 33 or nearly 33, our main striker. Yeah, I know, mate. I know. Yeah, I mean, Bowen is a perfect player for Moyes, isn't he? That's why I feel sorry for the other players. Bowen is a beast. He can run and run and like you said, chase those things he shouldn't chase, because he just can't stop running. The bloke is an SAS, mate, and it's, yeah, other players are not quite like that, and they shouldn't be expected to be like that, but yeah, lucky we got him. We'll see. This is the second type of contract increase he's had, isn't he, Paul? So he's got a nudge, got a bit more money out of us, so I don't think there's been any news on Soucek's extension on Kufal's, unless I missed it. I don't know.
No, I don't think there has been, no.
Trini, that's why Liverpool City have been linked with him. His passing is exceptional. It's out and out being a defender that worries me, especially the marking against the top 4, top 5, top 6 clubs. And I suppose one of those tough things, like you said, mate, is the couple of away games in Europe coming up where the crowd's going to be hostile, and then we'll see what Agard's made of, a bit more than not, isn't it, mate? I think that's gonna have to be strong at the back. That's where we need Zuma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brighton, bit early. Despite that, mate, Brighton are in
Europe. They've fallen off. Brighton and Brentford, both of them struggling, mate.
Yeah. The thing with Brighton, I've noticed, they've got a lot of choices in their team. You've got that Pedro that plays one game, doesn't play the next. So they've got a selection. I mean, I'm surprised because they do sell a few players. So, yeah, there's still something about their manager. I think they do want to play a certain way, and you are going to get shown up like that sometimes when you play that much attacking, mate. Yeah, he wanted to go, didn't he, to Saudi? I heard then last minute he said, I'm not sure I'll move my family up there. We had all kinds of stories. Oh, Broger's back. Oh, has he?
Yeah.
Oh, so West London. Oh, right. Yeah, he's a good lad, but very young, tough injury, plays for Albania, tough as old boots, and we have a long-standing interest in him. I'm not sure about that Gallagher, like I said, Frankie. I'm not sure about him, mate. I'm not sure about him.
I know we've been linked with him. We haven't been linked with him. There's been rumours that always get passed around, but he was one that I weren't totally convinced of, I have to say.
Shizzo, you're right, mate. When you even look at that Lingard season, we missed out on Champions League by 2 points or a point to Chelsea, and that was when Rice got injured. And it's always like that, tough, isn't it? When you look back, that's why every game is important. And you don't know. You often miss out on places by the odd point here and there. 1-0, Steve's is telling us. Hold gold. Actually, maybe not by himself up front, but certainly maybe he can. While we go for the rest of the comments, mate, I did want to bring up the VAR. I don't know if you've had a chance to have a look at the Spurs. I was listening on the radio like you probably, on the way back from the West Ham game, and I had a feeling what was going on. And obviously, I ain't got time for Spurs that much, but it's really kicked off, Frankie. I know it's because Liverpool have complained, but mate, it's bad,
It's not good, mate, is it? And it's there, but all the time humans are involved, there will be human error. I know, and it was a mistake. It went wrong, but how many mistakes have there been? How many mistakes have we had against us? How many times have we been sitting here screaming? Only Liverpool could take it to this sort of length and try and push it as much as they are to. But as much as I do think they whinge, and I do think they, it's just typical of Liverpool, this situation. The reason why Liverpool get a lot of decisions like they do, mate, is because they do whinge so much. They put pressure on. Do you know what I mean? They really make it uncomfortable for refs a lot, what they call for, what they ask for. I know things normally go in their favour, but when it don't, they go all out. When we've had issues before, mate, we just take it all on the chin, as you know, and we can be very naive to certain situations. We just feel done by, we lick our wounds and we just get on with it. I think sometimes you have got to try and push these things and create a bit of a fuss and say, look, we're not having this. This ain't right. This is not good enough. And they have had the courage to stand up and say, no, this ain't good enough. And we're going to push this and make it as awkward for you as possible.
I think you're right. We obviously were saying, like, even when Rice was around, we're too nice as a team. So I think hopefully Alvarez brings that little bit of snappiness and bite into the team. And Bowen against Liverpool, he didn't ask for it. No one else asked for it. He's got up straight away. Referee didn't want to know, So that's the kind of thing you got to look at. Liverpool, last thing I heard, everyone, is that they're asking for the audio tape from the VAR. So we'll find out what's going on with that. But that's what we heard. DJ, I believe it looks like you're from Ghana, mate. Tell us where you think Kudos should play, because you guys obviously love him and follow your countryman, mate. It'd be interesting to see from you. Robert, Chelsea are 2-0 up after 26 minutes, mate. Wow. Trinity, Steve. How you doing, Rob? You back in, mate?
I'm back.
Persistence,
I was there all the time. I've been here listening, but
right.
you wouldn't let me in. So
good. Sound good. We were just talking about, basically, did you go to the Sheffield United game?
I did, yeah.
What did you think about Antonio going off on Kudos coming on, and then hence not really having a striker up front after that for the last 15 minutes or so?
Yeah. Well, I'm not really up on all the sort of tactical side of things, but that second half was a big disappointment. I think that overall it was a big disappointment. I thought that, having said that, I did overhear one of you saying that given our history, having gone 2-0 up at half time, we should have been grateful that it stayed 2-0. It could easily have gone wrong. So I mean, I'm not an expert on football tactics. I don't fully I tend to leave it to the manager and trust him. But it did seem very flat second half, and I don't know whether they're of the view that we're 2-0 up, let's take it and not overexert ourselves. Keep everything. What should I say? Keep everyone fit for the next game. Don't put anyone at risk. Don't push too hard. I don't know, but it was very flat.
And how are you feeling anyway about the season with the signings coming in and how we're setting up? I mean, how do you feel? Any concerns? Anything you're really happy about? Not happy about? How do you feel at the moment as a West Ham fan?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously when you look at the league table and the start we've had, it's a big improvement on the way we finished last. Well, not the way we finished last season, but certainly the way we started last season. I think he's got a better balance in the squad. I think there is a lot of talk, isn't there, about who should start and whatever. And I think I'd pick up an echo on what's been said about it being a concern that Antonio is still the main man. They just don't seem to be able to find anyone to either compete with him or replace him. And if he's going to continue to play that way, then he really needs to, because his hamstrings are like glass, aren't they, for a start? He is inconsistent. So if he is going to continue with this with these tactics, then he needs to find someone that can challenge him, push him, and ultimately replace him.
Yeah, I think he's coming up to being 33, if not already. So yeah, age is catching up with him, and you see when it affects us when we played Liverpool, really top team, or City. You get very few chances, and at Anfield we blew 2 in the first 6 minutes.
Yeah,
Soucek put it on a plate, and Antonio, forget having a shot, he completely messed it up. It's those things at the end of the season is the difference. I always used to say to people, look at the league table and why Liverpool and all them always top 4. It's the squad and the quality and depth and what you've got on the bench and how you make those choices. And that's, from March is when those teams really make it count. And when you look back, we might miss out on a really good position by a couple of points. And the top 4 record for David Moyes, it's not very good. So it is one or two things to look at. But then obviously the good things are the squad is every year it's improving bit by bit. I think we spent the Rice money reasonably well in Ward-Prowse. I mean, man of the moment, Robin. He can't put foot wrong at the moment.
Yeah,
it's what I was thinking, Rob. Is he looks like he's made for West Ham the way he slotted in. No issue with him. He's just,
and he seems
fans love him.
He seems to be enjoying it as well, doesn't he? He's settled in well. He seems to be. I mean, he's a Southampton boy, isn't he? He's a Southampton fan. It would have been a big wrench for him to leave, I imagine. But he seems to have settled down. The fans have taken to him, and obviously that's going to help him. And he's hit the ground running.
Tell you what, that's a good point from the Spurs-Liverpool game. I'll ask you about the VAR in a minute. I mean, Liverpool were easily holding on with 9 men against Spurs for about 15, 20 minutes. And I mean, I don't know, Rob, if you've had a chance to look at that VAR mistake, which is all over the headlines at the moment. It's, I think one more like that and VAR could be in real trouble, I think, because Liverpool are piled on the pressure.
The thing is, it wasn't the decision wasn't wrong, was it? It wasn't. It was just the communication. So the referee decided that, or the linesman flagged for offside, disallowed the goal on field, and the VAR review said that they just misunderstood, I think, and said
check. They said check or something, didn't they? I don't know.
They said check complete, but didn't realise that the goal had actually been disallowed, I think. It's just a cock up, and these things happen, and Liverpool should get over it.
Yeah, it's just that I think one more high level mistake and it's gonna be the crap's gonna hit the fan. Rob, do you remember Francis Lee? Not really. You're not that old.
A little bit before my time.
Yeah,
a little bit before my time. But yes, I mean, I remember him more when his time as chairman of Man City, I think.
Yeah,
and which was almost as controversial as his time as a player, I think.
Yeah, rest in peace, Francis Lee. For those who doesn't know, I think around 69-70, City won the league, FA Cup, European trophy, and I think he won the league with Derby as well. I'm not sure. That's what they're saying. Another thing no one might not know is that he became a very, very wealthy person in the recycling business when no one knew about it in the mid to late 80s. So he was a very successful businessman, which he had enough funds. Yeah, he was to kind of put money into Man City later on, wasn't he? So
he was. Didn't they? They always thought that there was a Chinaman playing for Man City, didn't they? Because he always scored the penalty, and it would say Lee 1 pen.
Oh mate! Oh, we do need people still going on about Steve's in there. But yeah, anything else you want to chat about? Alvarez, you happy with him, mate? And Agard's looked a bit
he looks class, doesn't he? I mean,
yeah.
Dare I say it? I wouldn't say he's an upgrade on Rice necessarily, but the way he's being deployed is more what Rice should have been doing last season. Rice decided to go all Gerrard on us, didn't he, and try and do everything.
I love what you just said. That was a big issue for me, that he wanted to add goals and wanted to do this. And it looks like Alvarez just knows exactly what he is and he's comfortable with it. And I love that in a player. So,
yeah.
It's like you said,
there was a little thing he did in a Brighton game where he had got the ball in his own penalty area with 2 men on him, and he just sort of turned away from them and beat them both in one sort of body movement. It didn't even take the ball. Just the way he moved his body disorientated the two attacking players, and he was able to just get out of a situation just with a sort of shoulder dip. It was quite incredible. And I was at the Luton game as well.
Oh right,
I thought he was imperious. I thought he was by far the best player on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, no, he's a different player to Jeff Pike, isn't he? He's different. Jeff Pike was more busybody, wasn't he? Even though he put his foot in, and Jeff had a lot of energy, didn't he, running around. Question for you, Frankie, from the chat: Dorking Wanderers.
Yeah, doing well. I didn't see who they drew in the FA Cup fourth qualifying round. I think it is. I haven't seen who they got in the draw, but that's obviously quite a big thing for them because obviously they always wanted to make it to the first round proper. That's kind of the big thing for anyone. Looks like they've drawn Horsham Football Club. So I still love watching Mark. I think he's great. He actually did a video and it was superb, mate. If you haven't watched it, what was the podcast it was on? It is on Under the Cosh. An interview with Mark Wyatt. Absolutely brilliant. They asked him one of the highlights if he's got any football badges, because if they get promoted one more time, he's their manager as well as their owner, then obviously you've got to have certain level of football badges. And he just said, I've got all. And they basically said to him, would you have to try and get the qualifications? He said, no, I won't. He said, I'd start the biggest campaign as to why you need a qualification to manage a football team. He said it's a joke. He says it's not driving a bus. Not putting anyone's life at risk. Why you should need a badge to say I can manage a football club's ridiculous. And I'd start a nationwide campaign to put a stop to coaching badges. He's just a character. He's so out of the box. What he's achieved in football from a Sunday League team to be in where they are now is quite phenomenal. He also released that it's basically the club's now going to be community funded as well. So like they do overseas quite a lot, he's asking a lot of the fans if they want sort of shares and ownership in the football club. And I just love the way he's temperament. I love his mentality. I love the way he thinks. And he pretty much has always said it's all about rock and roll football. He said we'll try and score as many goals as possible. He said we'll let in a lot of goals as well, but that's what it's all about. It's about entertainment and giving the fans what they want. So no, he's a great guy, superb character, and any content that comes out from him, definitely keep an eye out for it, because he's a character, mate.
Sounds like the Spurs manager.
He's another one. Absolute character. These sort of old characters that seem to sort of fade away a little bit, they seem to be making a bit of resurgence, mate, which I like.
Yeah, we need characters. DJ is saying that Kudus can play up front, but the issue is DJ wants someone with him, not by himself. We need kind of formation that suits him, and he can have a few players with him, really. Yeah, I think with David Moyes and Rob, it's always going to be a bit negative at times. I think the fan base will never 100% like, we've won a trophy, we've been comfortable in the league, so. But you see it through the West Ham chats, even on my shows and things. I think there's always going to be a bit more to moan with David than perhaps fans from the outside understand, isn't it? I don't know how you feel about him, overall since he's been at the club. And I mean, I don't think we'll ever be really, really happy with him. It's just our habit. We just want to play a bit more expensive football and just see a bit more, don't we, sometimes, when the results show that he's been all right, But what do you think about overall David Moyes?
I've always... I always think maybe I'm in a minority, because all I ever see is noise on the social media criticising him. But I didn't want him to leave after the first spell. I thought he was harshly treated. Bringing Pellegrini in was obviously a big mistake. I think if Moyes had been allowed to have that extra year to build and bridge that gap between his two spells, we'd be in a better position now than we are. Obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Yes, style of play is a concern, and yes, we do want entertaining football, but we also want Premier League football. And we've come perilously close under various other managers to not having Premier League football. So I think that's got to be, you've got to decide whether it's not a game where you can afford to drop out of that league anymore, and think you'll bounce straight back, because it ain't going to happen. There's no guarantee that it'll happen. You see, Southampton and Leeds are already demonstrating.
Leicester,
Leicester are doing all right, aren't they? But anyway, as I say, I'm no expert on football tactics and whatever. I tend to, in Moyes, I trust.
Cool.
It is frustrating. It is frustrating when some of the things he doesn't do rather than some of the things he does do. And it does feel quite negative at times. But I've never had an issue with him, and you've got to give him something for bringing us some silverware.
Yeah. Totally understand. Yeah, I think things like substitutions, that in-game management, that's a bit, that winds fans up a bit.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely. Yeah, and you don't understand why it's been done. There you are.
Definitely. Soucek, last question for the show. Frankie, Soucek, mate, You rightly said that he's picking up some form, mate. He scored, nearly set Antonio up against Liverpool, then got another goal in the middle of the week, mate. Making those late runs into the box, I can see that. But the key question is, people are seeing Kudus on the bench and trying to figure out how he can get in there. It's tricky, isn't it, Frankie? Because Soucek, you can't, especially me, you can't say too much, at the moment.
No, I mean I'm very much of a similar position. That I'm not. I never like to come on here and say that I know the answers tactically or who should be in a starting lineup and who shouldn't. That 100% is for the manager to decide. I do look at the manager to get the best players on the pitch in a balanced formation that gets the best from each of them, and I do rely on him to keep everybody happy. I do think we've got a challenge on our hands with that. Moyes does find it more comfortable when he knows his best 11 and there isn't much competition for places, but we should be very happy that we've got this problem. We've got players who are fighting for places, we've got options which we probably haven't had this level of bench for quite a lot of years, so it's a great problem to have. We just need to hope that Moyes finds the best way to utilise it. I've never been one to get on Soucek's back. I said we've always known his limitations. I look back at a video that we did when we first signed him, and we all were saying then what we're saying now. He isn't great on the ball. He isn't the best passer of the ball, but he will cause problems in the air. He was getting in the box and he was scoring goals. Back then, we were saying he's going to be our first midfielder to score 10 plus goals a season for ages. And that's what he looked like he could achieve for us. And then we took that out of his game by letting Rice's ego dominate, and he wanted to go forward and add goals to his game and this and that. And Soucek looked like he got depressed more and more every week because he couldn't roam forward, which is obviously a massive part of the game that he enjoys and loves. We've got a bit of that back from him now, which is great. I've always said that even if you don't think he should be in the starting lineup for West Ham, he's still got a massive role to play. As a squad player, that should be perfect for West Ham. A player like Soucek who can play European football on those European nights that are tough games, that you've got to go abroad to Serbia and places like this, getting Soucek, who's prepared to put his body on the line and get goals from corners, and like he does, he's the perfect player to have around us. So I've never been as critical as some of the other people have been around him. I think he's been a bit harshly treated at times, to be fair. And I've always stood by. I think he's got a massive role to play at West Ham still, and he's still a really useful player that we should be able to use in ways that benefit the football club. So I'm happy to see him doing well again. I want to see every single one of our players doing well again, just as I do Ben Rama. He's probably the one who's got the biggest criticism for me at the moment, and I feel like he's the one who really needs to pull his socks up and try and add a bit of value to the team. And I really hope that he finds his way of starting to get some form again. But it's good to see from Soucek, mate. Been really important the last couple of games. Would I like to see Kudus at times? Yes. And should Moyes put his arm around Soucek and say at times, look, we've got Alvarez. He's our defensive man. Today, we're going to be a bit more attacking and we don't need to be as defensive, and you're going to sit this one out and Kudus is going to be the man that I'm going to start. Well, no problem with that, mate. Would like to see it. But we'll, like I say, as we all have all said today, it's down to Moyes to do that, isn't it? So,
before I ask Rob the same thing on Soucek, another good thing Trini mentioned, rightly so, is that Soucek on the defensive headers is quite useful, isn't he? When the opposition's got corners and stuff, so he does get his head on there, mate. Rob, Soucek for you, mate. Soucek, you happy with him prodding along?
Yes, mate. Sorry, just before Rob goes, I've got to pop off, mate. I will.
No
again,
problem.
All right?
You take care, mate.
Speak to you
take
soon.
Care.
Bye.
Take care. All right.
See you later, mate, Rob. Bye, Rob.
Bye. Yeah, Soucek for you, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, when he plays Soucek, or last season he was playing Soucek regardless, and it clearly wasn't working in that role. But I don't think that was Soucek's fault necessarily. But to make him the one that's the first name on the team sheet isn't necessarily the way to go. I think he's got much better options, especially for a game like last Saturday. We didn't need two defensive central midfield players. Having said that, if you play without two defensive midfield players and we end up 2-0 down at half time, then Moyes will get crap for that, won't he? Why didn't you do that?
Definitely.
I don't know the answer. Soucek is his kind of talisman, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's always had them. He was a big fan.
Used
of
to
Delaney,
be,
wasn't he? And he plays that similar sort of role. And I think, he will always have that. And I'd rather have someone like Soucek as his talisman than some other options.
Yeah, I mean, players like him, like you said, and to be fair, to another good thing about David Moyes is, touchwood, we don't get that many injuries since David's come in. We're fairly fit. And, it has changed, isn't it? It's really good, isn't it? I mean, we talk about Antonio, but they've done something to Antonio where certainly the last 24 months or so, he's kind of been all right. He's kind of...
They're slowly rebuilding him.
Yeah, they managed. He's managed all those trips to Jamaica and come back and kind of still fully fit anyway. What he does on the pitch is what we mentioned before, really. But anyway, we're up to 1 hour, so really appreciated your time, Rob, on a Monday.
Yeah, sorry about the technical issues.
That's all right. All these platforms are different. So looks like, Rob, you, with all the experience as a West Ham fan, which is a bit more than mine, that you are, like you said, more stable-minded, more calm about it, and good reason to be as well. Like you said, touchwood, we're reasonably well away from that bottom 10, under Moyes more, which never used to be the case. We've got a trophy. We're in the Carabao Cup, and we're in Europe again. And, apart from that, there's always...
what more fans want, to be honest.
I think they just want to, which is a natural West Ham DNA. They want a bit more expansive, bit more attacking. But I understand there is dangers to that. You can concede a lot more playing that way, and it's a bit tricky. And maybe some people want the youth players to perhaps get more.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? I mean, I'd like to see Mwamba get some time. Saturday would have been an opportunity as well, wouldn't it? How many do you have to be in front before you give the kid a chance?
I would have played two up front.
He's shown he can do it in the Conference League last season, didn't he?
Yeah, I would have perhaps tried two up front. Yeah, Sheffield United, see how it goes. But that's what it is, really. But anyway, thanks everyone in the chat. And we've got some tough games coming up in the Cups. Got Newcastle, I think Villa are coming. So, we will be tested again. And perhaps after a month, we'll know a bit more about each of the new players and see which direction we're heading in, really, mate. But thanks for joining in. We'll get you on again, mate, at some point. But I know how busy you are and things like that. But again, for everyone in the chat, I'll kind of quickly put it up again. It's go to YouTube, subscribe to search Robert Banks or West Ham History. It's great thing on John Lyle, The Error, and so many.
Saturday's the first episode of the Billy Bonds years.
Brilliant. There we go. Rob's not stopping there. He's going to do the Billy Bonds. So you got a real knack for it now, haven't you? You're in your flow.
There's a method to it.
And when are you going to start on a remake of Lawrence of Arabia then, Rob? When's that coming? All in good time. You take care, mate. Have a great evening. Thank you. And thank you to everyone in the chat. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.
Bye.